Joy you can't buy. Have you ever sought happiness in achievements, possessions, or moments of abundance, only to discover that true joy resides elsewhere, something money can't buy nor plenty guarantee? In a world that often teaches us to associate well-being with the multiplication of goods, this question becomes an invitation to deep reflection. Psalm 4, in its 7th verse, offers us a transformative perspective on the source of true satisfaction. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. This passage, following the profound pleas and reflections of the psalmist David, who in other verses addresses topics like the pursuit of justice, trust in God, and the struggle against dishonor, reveals a singular discernment about the nature of genuine joy. Even in times of deprivation or persecution, David understands that the joy God places in his heart far surpasses the fleeting euphoria that comes from material prosperity. It is a declaration that true wealth is internal, and that the divine source is capable of filling the soul with contentment, regardless of external circumstances. It is an invitation for us to reevaluate where we have been seeking our own joy. Deceptive abundance, more than they have when their grain and wine abound. The image of grain and wine is a powerful metaphor for material prosperity, abundance, a bountiful harvest. In ancient times, the multiplication of grain, bread, basic sustenance, and wine, celebration, joy, social well-being, signified plenty, security, and success. Society then as now tended to associate happiness with these symbols of wealth and abundance. When granaries were full and cellars overflowed, it was assumed that joy would be guaranteed. Let's think about Mr. Osvaldo's story. He dedicated most of his life to building a financial empire. From a very young age, he believed that happiness would be a natural consequence of having everything: luxurious homes, imported cars, secure investments, the ability to buy whatever he wanted. And he succeeded. In his early 50s, the grain and wine in his life multiplied extraordinarily. He had more than he had ever dreamed of. His friends saw him as the lucky one, the successful one. However, behind the facade of prosperity, Mr. Osvaldo felt a growing emptiness. Achievements brought momentary pleasure, but deep, lasting joy always seemed to slip through his fingers. With each new acquisition, the euphoria quickly faded, leaving a yearning for something more. He saw others who had much less but seemed to radiate genuine joy in their simple lives. The comparison disturbed him. The psalmist invites us to confront this illusion. Material abundance by itself is insufficient to fill the soul's longing. It can bring comfort, security, and ephemeral pleasures, but not the joy that truly satisfies the heart. The multiplication of grain and wine may even generate euphoria, but not the peace and contentment that come from a deeper source. It is the perception that the true currency of joy is not material. The true source of joy: you have put joy in my heart. In direct contrast to the ephemeral joy of material prosperity, the psalmist declares a revolutionary truth: you have put joy in my heart. This joy is not self-generated, nor does it depend on external factors. It is a divine gift, a present that God infuses directly into the soul. This joy is internal, deep, resilient. It persists even when grain and wine are scarce, when circumstances are adverse, or when life doesn't follow the planned script. It is the joy that comes from God's presence, from a heart aligned with Him, from the certainty of being loved and cared for by the Creator. Let's think about Donna Selma's story. A retired teacher in her 60s, she had always lived a life with modest resources, but rich in experiences and relationships. She had no great fortune or luxurious possessions. However, her home was a refuge of peace, and her face radiated a contentment that many with far more grain and wine did not possess. Recently, she went through a delicate health phase that prevented her from doing many of the things she loved. The physical limitations were frustrating, and the loss of her former autonomy saddened her. Even in the face of this trial, Donna Selma noticed something extraordinary. In the most difficult moments, instead of despair, a serene joy enveloped her. It was the joy she felt upon an unexpected visit from an old student, upon hearing her grandchild's laughter, upon watching the sunset from her window, or upon reading a comforting word in the Bible. This joy did not depend on her perfect health or bulging bank accounts. She felt that this joy came from an invisible source, that God had put it in her heart. It was His presence, gratitude for every small blessing, the peace that surpassed physical pain. For Donna Selma, this inner joy was more valuable than any fortune, for it filled the void that illness could have left. This joy is a testament to the fact that God's presence in our heart is the greatest of all riches, the true treasure. Prioritizing the invisible Psalm 4:7 invites us to reevaluate our priorities and recognize that true joy is not a byproduct of material prosperity. On the contrary, it is a state of the heart that is infused by God Himself. It is the ability to find satisfaction and contentment regardless of external circumstances. This is the joy that withstands storms, that flourishes in the desert, and that cannot be stolen by life's losses or challenges. This verse challenges us to question the source of our joy. Are we seeking it in things that pass or in the source that is eternal? Value inner contentment. Recognize that the peace and joy God gives us are more valuable than any accumulation of goods. Cultivate gratitude. Each day, learn to perceive and value the joy in the heart that God offers us, often in subtle details and simple moments. Seek God's presence above all else, for in it resides the inexhaustible source of true and lasting joy. It is a message for the soul that, amidst the incessant pursuit of happiness, realizes that the shortest path to true satisfaction is the alignment of the heart with the Creator. It is an invitation to experience a joy that does not depend on how much grain and wine we have, but on how much of God we allow to dwell within us. Therefore, the next time you find yourself measuring your joy by the amount of possessions you have or the achievements you've made, remember Psalm 4:7. Redirect your gaze and your heart to the source that never runs dry. Ask God to put joy in your heart, a joy that transcends any material abundance, a joy that is deeper, truer, and that remains no matter the time or circumstances. This is the joy that truly sustains the soul and fills life with meaning.